What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's going on, everybody? How you feeling? How you doing? What is the word going on out there? Man, it is Monday, and I'm Solar Gray, the Cinematic Sorcerer, and welcome to the dark side of the room. Now, I'm coming at you from the Wizard's Tower, and we're going to be talking about... Oh, quiet, you... Let's see here. Yeah, you just be everybody down. You just be quiet there. And today on the dark side of the room, I tried to give a description in the go live area, and I got hit real hard with, this may violate our thing and our policy, so we're not going to put that up. And I'm like, that's a thing. But yeah, today on the dark side of the room, we have a heavy topic, because this weekend, I ain't gonna lie, y'all, this weekend really did some damage, okay? And I wanted to talk to you guys because there may be a lot of changes coming to dark side of the room and back in the deck, and honestly, I'm fighting it tooth and nail, but I don't know if I can win this fight. Okay. But before we get started, I'm gonna ask you seriously to subscribe to the channel, share the channel, all that stuff. This is really what this battle has been about, and do what you can to subscribe. Sign up on our Patreon, like our other deckers and stuff like that. Our major, we got a new person in the Queen tier, so this is to help us stay open and help us to do the community outreach and all that stuff. I'm doing a lot of stuff at once, guys, and if I seem a little run down on energy, I have a migraine currently. So yeah, my speech patterns are not going to be as boisterous as they normally are. But I want to give a major shout out to my folks in the Patreon tier, starting with my Queen tier, with Shannon Boom Boom Lay, Chaley Watson, Laura Holton, Jennifer Kroll, Noel Oheiler. That would be Shannon Boom Boom Lay, Chaley Watson, Laura Holton, Jennifer Kroll, Noel Oheiler, and our new person on the royalty tier, Frank Perkins. We also have our kings, Laura Gross, and Christopher Chalmers, and of course our ace in the hole, Joseph Hines. Thank you guys. Really, really, really. Thank you for help keeping us afloat. This is like a real big thing. I want to give a massive shout out to my people in NP City right now, like Action Shin, Clever Little Vixen. Let's see. I am broadcasting and all that stuff. And Daryl, what's going on, Daryl? And our people over on YouTube. So subscribe, share, all that stuff. Now, I'm giving a content warning right out the bat, all right? This is going to be a serious episode because this weekend a lot of stuff happened. And with the stuff that happened this weekend, I was reminded of a couple of things on a lot of levels. And I wanted to bring some of this stuff up because these things can appear in your gaming group, at your table, in your chat, anywhere that you're dealing with people that didn't grow up like you did, okay? So yeah, we're going to be taking care of all that. I'm just checking to see if there's anything else. Oh yeah, subscribe to the channel and join the Discord. So if you guys have anything that you guys want to run past me or share with me on the down low and all that stuff, send an email to backinthedeck@gmail.com. It's BACKINTHEDECK@gmail.com. And you can also hit me up on the social media that we all have and no one likes, being Twitter and Instagram. So that's the stuff that you can totally do because I really want to cultivate actual relationships with people, and I have no problem whatsoever having real conversations with the people that are out here. All right. So seriously, I believe that, well, how can I put this? I talk to you guys a lot about how I don't have a whole lot of beliefs, and that is still true. And the fact of the matter is, I know that we cannot be a community unless we commune. So y'all got my time. All right. So that's going to be the thing on that. So there we go. Got all that. Got the links up. Let's see who else is out here. Just want to see this real quick. All right. Thank you very much, Daryl, for tuning in. You're being a trooper, man. I really dig that. So, what do I have to talk with you guys about today? Now, our the description is let's talk history. The announcement I put out was historical disenfranchisement and the effects it has on your nerd friends. All right. So, personal story time. All right. My family had a major matriarch. All right. That matriarch was my great grandmother. Now, she died when I was 12, I think, 12, 13. What's going on, Stargate? And she was born in 1892 in Texas. Crockett, well, last place I know that she lived was Crockett, Texas. And she came out to California in the 1920s or 30s during the Great Migration. All right. But we always had a saying in my house was that the woman that raised most of us grew up about 15 minutes outside of slavery. That means she lived through Jim Crow. She lived through all the riots, okay, like all the riots, Watts, Bloody Sunday, the Freedom Riders. She lived through all that. And that being the case, she was actually very much damaged by neo-slavery and the part of history that we don't really talk about in school. Now, this is important, okay, because this is the foundation of the cultural traditions that my family holds and sort of an insight as to the ways of a lot of Black America. All right, there is a lot of assumptions and a lot of rhetoric and a lot of bad faith conversations that like to do things like say things like, yeah, no, that was a long time ago, or it ain't like that now and all that stuff. But today I want to talk about ripple effects. All right, because this is something I used to get into all the time with my friends, because they had certain opinions, they had certain thoughts, and they had certain expectations of my capabilities and the opportunities that I had in life, and how I wasn't nearly as far along as they were. And they were shocked that there were a lot of things that they just knew as part of culture that I didn't. Okay? Here's the thing. I use the term the disenfranchised sector when talking about who I put this stuff together for, who I put this company together to help. All right. And there are so many different disenfranchised sections of Western culture. I don't know enough about Eastern culture to help. I'm sorry. I wish I did. And, you know, be it people of color, women, LGBTQ, people of different creeds, people of different religions, from the standardized cultural norms, neurodivergence, and then there are the people who were born poor and aren't rich yet. All right? I call them the fiscally disenfranchised because there's a lot that goes with it. And I want y'all to know, when I'm out there in the world and I'm talking with people and I'm pitching the community outreach programs, there is always some person out there trying to tell me that if millennials had majored in something marketable or if people had more skills, and it takes every ounce inside me not to hit them in the face with a chair. Because I have a friend. He was in I'm not going to say he was one of those guys, but he was close to being one of those guys. And I told him that I'm not a very political person in rhetoric, okay? But the reason that I can't get down with libertarianism and this personal responsibility narrative is because it only works under the assumption that every person is born with the same access to education, opportunity, and it also assumes that we live in a world where people aren't discriminated against for essentially not being like the person with the power to give opportunity. I was talking with someone about my days when I lived in Orange County, California. I hate to say it, but if you really want to know what that place is like, the 3 things to really watch that sums up my experience there are American History X, The OC, and Arrested Development. That third one is special because when I watched it, I didn't know it was satire because I knew so many people that were just like the Bloom family and everyone related to them. And there is this great big assumption that everybody is like you, okay? And this is, when I say culture is what happens when you're not looking, all right? I need to put an addendum on there, which is, yeah, right, Antoine? I need to put an addendum on there. It also happens when you can't see anyone else. Yes, the Bloom family, as in there's always money in the banana stand. I've seen some stuff. I've seen things, guys. Thank you, Neon Arlecchino. Holding it down in the chat right there. Okay. And somebody that grew up on the border of interesting discussion about personal responsibility. I was having a discussion with one of my oldest friends, and he straight up said to me that the ghetto, inner city, hood, whatever you want to call it, is a crab pot where there is no community help. Everybody is trying to pull each other down. And I'm like, I don't appreciate you talking that way about where I came from. Especially since you've never lived there, you don't know my culture, and the truth is, it doesn't seem like you want to know the nuances of where I come from. You've just made up your mind and that's it. And I find that insulting, and I take umbrage with it. And yes, I do use terms like take umbrage. I'm that guy. Now don't get me wrong. The history of the United States is steeped in taking the negative aspects of every single subculture in this country and amplifying it to mine 10,000%. Because I'll tell you, I've lived in trailer parks. I've lived in places that had mansions. I've lived in the suburbs for the past 15 years. And I will tell you, every single one of those places had crime, drugs, greedy family members, a lack of love, self-centeredness, and all that stuff. The origins of it are different, but the behavior is the same all the way across the board, okay? We are all just alike people, all of us. Now, here's the thing. I'm currently fighting a major crab in my bloodline. And I'm saying bloodline because I will not call this person family. I will call them a bunch of things. And I won't remove their personhood. They will always be a person. But they are not my family. We just happen to share blood. And essentially, They are performing actions that may cost me everything I've built in back of the deck. I'm back in the deck. Everything. Okay. I may have to stop streaming except for maybe 1 or 2 days a week. I won't be able to do the research and all that stuff because I'll have to give up everything that I've worked for and get a job at Costco to give them money, or they will push it so that the court takes my house, which is also where my studio is. This is real. Okay. And I was talking to a good friend of mine over the weekend and explaining to him the situation because I flaked out on a couple of transmissions with him because I was on the phone with or in the office of my lawyer trying to work this crap out. And the first thing he said to me when he heard the factors was, man, this is why our people can't get ahead. And it got me thinking, you know, I've seen a lot of families when the matriarch dies or when money comes in. And I've seen a lot of people ripping and tearing and the jackals and all that stuff come in. I've seen it. But one thing that's interesting about my culture, and this is where history comes in, okay? Because y'all know I'm the guy that asks why. Why is it that we are like this? You know, why is it that we do this? And then I think back to something we used to say in my house whenever one of my cousins or somebody was being a little more trifling than normal from their psychological state. And we used to call it that old plantation stuff. Because, see, during the days of slavery, the slaves had to hide the good parts about themselves, okay? Like the whip cracker would come out and compliment one of the kids, and the mother would be like, nah, he's stupid, he's all, you know, and she would tear him down in front of the whip cracker. Now, that put a complex in the kid's face, but the reason that she did this is because if a child showed aptitude or intelligence, they would be taken from their mothers and sold to a different family. Okay? And this gives us a foundation of survival, a fight or flight thing. American black people, I don't know how it is in the UK, but American black people have grown up, I don't care what generation you're under, with a culture of being under siege and hunted. And the truth is, I don't care if you think it's legitimate or illegitimate, true or not true. This is something that is, okay? And the history behind this. Sorry, Daryl, I warned you this was going to be a serious one. All right, so what does that mean? That means when you are hunted and under siege and all that stuff, panic sets in, running sets in. However, along with this, I guess you can say scar or traumatic background, there's also the United States narrative. All right. When I was a kid, a president got elected in 1980 named Ronald Reuel Reagan. Okay. And he pushed this narrative of personal responsibility. Everybody is in charge of themselves. And he doubled down on the bootstrap narrative. All right. So according to these people, it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what infrastructure you don't have. It doesn't matter how little personhood you're treated with. You just keep striving, and you too can be the owner of the hotel that right now you're the janitor in. And people bought this hook, line, and sinker because the enfranchised in the United States at the time outnumbered the disenfranchised almost 100 to 1. And when I say disenfranchised, I don't mean the dictionary definition of the term that comes from the 1800s of people that did not have the right to vote. I mean the people who are locked out of advancements because of resources, a lack of infrastructure, a lack of education, all of that stuff. All right? So these two things are constantly are constantly fighting with each other. Because when you hold this narrative of personal responsibility and I got to take care of myself and I'm in danger and me, combined with the constant cultural trauma, the hypervigilance of offense, the everybody's out to get me type thing based. This is where crabs come from. It's not as reductive as haters being like, I don't like that you're ahead, so I'm gonna tear you down. It's, I'm afraid for me, so I'm gonna take care of myself. And if you happen to die or end up homeless or whatever, I don't care, because I gotta look out for me. Okay, it is a matter of panicked selfishness. All right, because again, coming from a culture, who was it? Knowing Better is one of my favorite YouTube channels. He's got an hour and a half video about neo-slavery and the Jim Crow effects of post-slavery and how the country has been very anti-black since its inception. Now, I'm not saying that nobody else has problems, okay? But we went from cultural and infrastructural targeting to taking down the cultural infrastructure that said my skin color specifically, but it then turned around and criminalized everything that the people with my skin color had left, okay? Just a small example. When slavery was outlawed, it became legal to rent slaves or rent prisoners from jail to work your fields for super cheap. At that particular time, laws of anti-loitering, unemployment, and illiteracy were then put on the books, okay? But here's the thing. The majority of those people that were like that were former slaves, because we weren't given any infrastructure or housing or employment. We were just told, y'all ain't slaves anymore, go fend for yourself. So if we hadn't found a job yet, into jail, back in the fields. And as far as the literacy thing, thank you, clever little vixen. Yeah, that's my subscription dance. If you subscribe on Twitch, I do that dance every time. But yeah, with the anti-literacy laws, this was one generation previous, where if a person with my skin color wanted to learn how to read, they could literally be killed where they stood. And there were no schools. So this is how all of these things came down. So the culture that was under that, my culture, was rightly suspicious. And that was the 1800s. Let's not talk about the 20s, with the fact that Social Security only passed because my people weren't included at the beginning, to Jim Crow, to post-Jim Crow, to redlining, to housing disparities, to the fact that due to redlining, people of color in the United States could only buy properties in areas that were sectioned off for industrial use. So we could live in a decent area, and then the city would build a dump in it, or an oil refinery, or a nuclear waste facility. I am not joking. So this trauma, based with that personal responsibility and every man for themselves mentality, is what creates a lot of difficulties when it comes to my people, and the fact that the family bond that a lot of other cultures have, we don't. We don't, because as much as family is supposed to be what we hold on to, family can always be taken. All right? So, there's that. As you guys know, I lost my mother a year ago. And as soon as that happened, Everybody descended on the house for everything that she wanted for, or that she worked for over 50 years of her life. Okay? And there is a particular predator in my bloodline that's always seemed to have targeted me specifically. And they're at it again. And because they're at it, long story short, I have to come up with $60,000 by the end of the year to give this person, or I lose my house, I lose the studio, and I might get a small chunk of money because of it, but it won't be enough to start over. Okay? And all because this person wants what they want right now. All right? So, this was my weekend, y'all. Now, here's the thing. All of those things that I gave with the little history lesson, this is something that every black person whose ancestry is from the United States. Notice I'm leaving out the ones who grew up in Africa, like Kenya, Nigeria, Ethiopia, South Africa. They've got different stuff. Yeah, that's right, Antoine Allen. So I'm really trying to push for these subscriptions and these patrons, because if not, I lose everything and I got to get a day job, and I might be able to do this on weekends with you guys. Maybe. So yeah, that's real. That's real talk. All right. Now, this is the stuff that weighs on the back of every single one of your nerd friends whose family is in the United States from the transatlantic slave trade. All right. I'm sorry to tell you this, but this is history. All right. When you guys talk to them and you're not from this culture, or you're not from that scar, there's a lot of things that go with that scar that you guys might not be privy to, you know. I had to explain to a friend of mine that I learned how to balance a checkbook, but I didn't know how to build credit. I didn't know how to talk to girls for a very long time, because my brothers were so much older than me and there's no classes in that. But even beyond that, let's see, murderous colonization that created a transit head start of largely white Americans and economic gain of slavery. Yes, there is that. There is very much that. And I'm talking about the way that it reflects in the way that we interact with each other today. All right. And when people that don't come from that history interact with us, there's a lot that's there. I was talking about my friend who's a libertarian. And when I told him, look, libertarianism is fine if we lived in a society where people had equal access to the means of survival, equal access to education, and equal access to advancement. If you have all the tools and all the opportunity to learn those tools and all the opportunity to use the skills with those tools, and you're still broke, that's on you. But I've spent a good amount of explaining and teaching my friends from the suburbs and the upper middle class parts that I grew up without those tools and without people to teach me how to use those tools. So when they talk to me about stuff, I'm like, keep in mind, you're assuming I have a base level of awareness that I don't. And when I interact with you, you're interacting with me as though I'm making excuses and I'm choosing not to do the thing that will put me ahead. And it's not that I'm not choosing to do it. I literally don't know what it is. I got into it with my lawyer because of something that he'd said to me. And I've been getting these calls in the evenings all weekend, okay? And the first call was me being presented this situation and being told that the court will not side with me, or the court will see the difference between the two of us, my lack of steady income and that guy's lack of scruples and sanity and anything else. And they'll force the sale of the property And that'll be it. You know, that will literally be it. So, and that tore me. That tore the crap out of me. And here's the thing. That was in the middle of my work day. I still had transmissions to do, shows to write, reviews to write, all that stuff. And when I explained, like, I'm kind of sort of freaking out, and he just keeps saying, yeah, but you have the big piece of property. You're being unreasonable. You're thinking like a poor man. And I'm like, if this guy gets his way, I lose my business that I've spent the past 8 years building, and you're not listening to me. You know, I'm like, my whole life, this guy has been doing this. Man, you're just mad over stuff that you need to let that stuff go. And it would have been physically violent had this conversation been in person, okay? Because he had already made up his mind that I was being unreasonable. And then he finally asked me the question, well, why don't you want to sell? And I explained to him everything numerically, and he's like, all right. So we talked the next day, and I apologized for yelling at him, not because he didn't merit being yelled at, but because that's not the type of man I wish to be. I would like to be calm and logical and all of those things. So I was apologizing to him for me being less than I know what I can be by my standard. And he apologized for saying that I was talking like a poor man because he really didn't understand that I was coming from a place of, if this guy gets his way, I get a pocket full of money that I can't spend on a new place to live. So I'll have a pocket full of money while sleeping under a bridge. And everyone that's talking to me about this is not considering the implications. All they hear is money. And that, my friends, is a major contributor to that is a major contributor to the scars of this culture. Okay. It's actually funny. I don't think like a poor man. I think like a working man, primarily because I'm like, okay, what are the implications and what's the merit in this? What's the merit in that? You see, I think things through. But my lawyer's black. My family members are black, so we still have a lot. And my lawyer is one of the most amazing people I've ever met in my entire life. Okay. It's just he forgets where he comes from every once in a while and still uses we came from the same place. And I'm like, okay, hold up. And I'm like, yeah, if we came from the same place, then you need to remember where I am in relation to where you are and the world that we live in now, because there was more opportunity for growth while you were coming up than there is now, you know? And he's like, okay, I just heard the numbers, and I'm like, wow, I see this. And I'm like, yeah, and it's great on paper. Before my mom died, yeah, I know. Can get us a tiny hat. Come on. No, real talk though. Real talk. When my mom was alive, we talked about the way the world was changing and things like that. And she admired my quest to bring all these cultures together, because I see that we're all hurting in the same ways, guys. And one of the things that came out of some talks was when my mom was retired, you know, she was making an okay amount of money, but it was a king's ransom against her expenses. Okay. And I had to let her know, look, Mom, things are different now. The 1 is the new 5. If you think you're going to spend $1, it's going to cost 5. You know, look at how much a Big Mac costs. I'm sorry to tell you. And she was like, wow, son, you're kind of in there. And, you know, essentially money spends a lot less. But growing up in the United States, after Nixon had to stop saying the N-word, it all became about criminalizing and looking down on poverty. All right. And So yeah, I grew up poor. I was born poor. What does this mean? This means that my school books in public school were not up to spec. They were not up to spec. Los Angeles, yeah, not up to spec. All right. My history books had nothing on the 1970s in them. So the whole Nixon rise and the Carter administration, that wasn't taught to me in school because it wasn't in the books. When I got transferred to a Genius program and got bused to a different area, then I got social studies books that were up to par. I got math books that were up to par. I got a better education, but I was one out of maybe 30 kids that qualified for that program in my area out of the 2,000 children at my school alone. Okay? I was one out of 20 out of 2,000. Okay? I just want you guys to just suck up those numbers real quick, all right? That means I was literally 5% of 1% of the population of my school. That's, and that's due to poverty, And a lot of people want to sound clever saying where these things come from and why it's the way that it is. But I'm sorry to tell you guys, y'all don't understand the whole story. Hey, what's going on, Nerdy Brew? Y'all need to check out Nerdy Brew's YouTube channel as well, all right? Much like me, he is an educated family man who reviews pop culture and drinks coffee while doing it. So that's real. Am I feeling okay? Not really. Check out the beginning of the stream. We're talking about some real stuff. So that's where this is coming down. Now, how does this relate to playing D&D and going with your stuff? Well, guess what? These are the cultural scars that I, as a cis, straight, black man, have when I sit at the D&D table. What are the cultural differences when a woman sits at the table? When a Latino sits at the table, and I still say Latino because I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and please excuse me, I don't mean it as a pejorative, okay? But when where I grew up in LA, everybody who spoke Spanish was Mexican. But the fact is they came from the Dominican Republic, Belize, El Salvador, Chile. Some came from Mexico, some came from Guatemala. So, it's a thing. I might be okay. Talking to my people on YouTube, yeah. Of course, RJ, bro. You here? Like, Nerd Soul is over here on Twitch, hanging out, and it's one of the, y'all know me, Nerd Soul. You can always find us on Sundays on his channel. We've been talking about Picard. It hurts. But yeah, and I've got actual family that's LGBTQ plus, and when I was growing up, I never quite got along with my with the black people in my area. I always talked too much like a white person. I had strange interests, and I wasn't athletic, nor was I interested in being hard. I'm not a big fan of prison culture, and I never wanted to go to prison, and I never wanted to act like I was already there. That comes from a sense of hopelessness, I was always on the college path, not the penitentiary path. And make no mistake, I say that, but that does not mean that penitentiary path didn't come chasing me. And I don't mean the people that were on it. I mean the system that I lived in that was looking to throw me in jail for anything that happened when I was within 4 miles. Read what I said about Orange County earlier. Or Simi Valley, or the San Fernando Valley, all that stuff. That's cute, Tyler. Never was afraid of jail, just never had time to go. All right, yeah, hey, you can, whatever kept you out, hey man, more power to you. So yeah, when I get around a lot of mixed cultures and mixed people, I notice that the people who grew up, I guess you can say, on win mode of American culture, and this is through no fault of their own. Okay, I want nobody here, to think that I'm coming down on white Americans, or to use what I say as a reason to discard white people in the United States. Okay, this is not that. All right, because a lot of them literally don't know anything about any culture outside of themselves, because the ones who are more powerful, the lawmakers, the producers, the people who decide what's on TV at what time, they don't show the upsides of other cultures, nor do they show the downsides of their own. Okay? And I really want to make that clear. All right? When I talk to my conservative friends about welfare, I hear the Reaganomics stuff when they talk about welfare queens, and I show them the numbers that the majority of welfare recipients in the United States are rural, poor white people. But they were programmed to see Latinos and blacks getting welfare as taking from them. And when I say through no fault of their own, just like I couldn't help being born, yeah, the program directors, thank you, Tyler. Just as I couldn't help being born in the middle of South Central LA in the 70s, they couldn't help being born in Fullerton, California, or Hyde Park in Boston, or they didn't have any choice in that either. Okay, everything's messed up right now, and this is literally like really me. One of the reasons that I'm here, one of the reasons that I do this streaming 5 days a week, is so that we can come together, if in no other subjects, okay, in no other subjects, we can come together over the stuff we like. D&D, 40K, comic books, Marvel movies, DC movies, although, yeah, let's face it, we don't really come together over DC movies. But in order for us to come together, we have to understand where each of us actually comes from, and not assume that our culture, the way that we were raised, is the way that everyone in the world was. All right? To my white friends, there's a lot of stuff about black culture and Latino culture that you do not know. Do not assume that things have the same level of difficulty for a person of color or an LGBT person as they are for you. I'm sorry to tell you, in a lot of cases, it's harder. Okay? In most cases, there are more difficulties and fewer tools to remedy those difficulties than there are. Make no mistake. Make no mistake. I ain't saying y'all got it easy. What I am saying is that a lot of y'all have it easier, but are so entrenched, encumbered, and distracted by the difficulties that you have, that it's really easy to hear that someone else out there is hurting and start to think, and I see this reaction all the time, well, what about me? And I say often, a 2-year-old that stubs their toe on the coffee table is in the most pain they have ever been in. When a greenhorn soldier takes their first bullet in combat, they are in the most pain they've ever been in. And an athlete that gets their first testicular torsion is in the most pain they have ever been in. Fact of the matter, each of these things hurt differently, and on a scale, on a scale of 1 to 10, they're all different. But it's not the intrinsic value, it's the relative value of what the pain is. Okay, I'll tell you, My girlfriend can take a lot more physical pain than I can when it comes to muscle soreness and body aching, and I can take a lot more physical pain when it comes to impact and ligament damage. And both of us are on our asses are on our butts when it comes to teeth. I think teeth, that is the common divider. All right. I did learn that, like, the Marine Corps gives gives a day off per tooth pulled to their toughest soldiers. And I'm like, I learned this because someone I knew was in the Marine Corps, and they told me this when I was going to get my wisdom teeth pulled. And I'm like, nah, this is going to be nothing, blah, blah, blah. And I got my wisdom teeth pulled, and all that stuff happened. And then that Novocaine wore off. And, well, if y'all have seen Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, there is a scene where they pour something down his throat, and they put him on a stone slab, and all he does is curl up in a ball, and he doesn't yell or scream. He's just groaning. He wants to yell, but the act of yelling is, that's what it felt like when that Novocaine wore off. And now this is actually a really good example. Okay, this is an example of what I'm talking about. When I tell this story to a lot of my friends that grew up in the middle class, they were like, hang on. When I got my wisdom teeth pulled, they put me under, and there was an anesthesiologist and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, you grew up in the suburbs. I got Novocaine and what looked like a cross between an ice pick and a pry bar. And I was awake the entire time. Then I had to walk home. I'm sitting up on the thing. And in my head, I heard, and then he reached in with the little things, and he pulled them out, and he showed me. And I'm just like, okay, all right, so this is what getting your wisdom teeth is out. And when I heard my friends got put out, and there was like surgery and gowns that didn't close in the back and a bed, I'm like, that's what it's like other places? Huh, I did not get that. So even though I'm a soft-spoken dude, I do my best not to use much profanity, and I really don't like raising my voice. People look at me and they're like, well, you seem like a suburban white guy. And I'm like, I came up very hard. Very hard. And my friends that grew up in the suburbs, I will tell you, there were so many terrible things that I saw in the suburbs. I'm like, fighting was regular where I was growing up, but sexual assault is rampant out there. And I'm just like, huh, that's a thing. Oh man, you had to do a marrow thing, black and white, now in color. Yeah, getting bone marrow extractions, again, most pain you've ever been in. And when I talk to people about the stuff they're going through, I'm not that guy that says that guy has it worse, so shut up. And that is what a lot of people try and do, or are used to people communicating to. And as I say, culture is what happens when you ain't looking. All right? It's the way that we all become our parents. I was working with a band 23 years ago, and one of them picked up my bass, and I looked at them and I'm like, boy, if you don't put that down. And I'm like, whoa, I'm not my mom. Please put down my bass, or at least ask me for permission before picking it up, because I am not the man with whom to mess with. Okay. And yeah, like I said, I went from yeah, like that scene in Blade, So yeah, it really is. Oh my God, yeah, trauma bonding should be illegal like gaslighting. Now this is a really big thing. I'm glad you brought that up, Tyler. Let's go down that road for a hot minute. Gaslighting is a term that's thrown around a lot lately, and I'm glad, okay? Because it is a thing. Now, I grew up in the inner city, which is, how can I put it? The eldest child of growing up rural poor. And gaslighting is rampant in my culture, because culturally speaking, gaslighting was the main defense against the truth of the world. Okay, if you guys watch the movie Get On Up, okay, if you guys watch the movie Get On Up with Chadwick Boseman, rest in power, playing James Brown, when he was a child, his mom was a sex worker in the South in like the 20s. And when I say the South, I mean like Mississippi, all right? Mississippi, whose only claim to fame is that Alabama can be proud that it's not Mississippi. He and his mom are running through the woods trying to get away either from the executive manager of the sex worker house that they were working at, or a lynch mob. I'm not sure which. And he was like, Mama, I'm hungry. Mama, I'm hungry. My stomach's making noises. And she looked down at him and said, you hear those noises? That's God singing to you, telling you that he loves you. All right? And that behavior really was intrinsically branded into our culture. I grew up with crippling bipolar disorder and crippling post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay? And when I was going through bouts of depression, the people in my life were telling me, you don't have depression. If you had depression, you'd be thinking about killing yourself. If you had depression, you would be on medication. And it's like, don't I have to tell someone that I have depression to get medication? You know, that kind of thing. You know, but it's the circular logic of, I don't know how to deal with this. So I'm not just going to ignore it, but I'm going to convince you that it's not true. And that is the definition of gaslighting, but the motive for gaslighting is a lot different than what pop culture teaches us. But it's also one of those scars from my culture. To such a point, I'll be honest with you guys, I react violently to gaslighting, which kind of explains why I'm losing a lot of my white friends. Because truth be told, guys, in 10 days I will be 45 years old. And when my friends who have not been racially profiled or had acts of violence based on them, or aimed at them based on the circumstances of their birth, tell me that what I'm seeing isn't based on that, i.e., look, bro, it's not because you're black, it's because you're tall. Or it's not because you're black, but it's because you speak with authority. It's like, it's because I'm black that my authoritative speech is a problem to these people. My actual having of the knowledge is a problem to these people, right? Talk to me, ladies. I know y'all know what that looks like. And this is where I come from, and this is where Back in the Deck comes from, all right? We all, as military guys, say, we sure chewed some of the same dirt, all right? And we do. We chew a lot of the same dirt. Every time I speak to a feminist, I speak to them with as much understanding as I can have as a black man. And I work really hard for them to listen to me speaking from the standpoint of a black man as they do to feminism. Because there's a lot of people out there going, you're a man. And I'm like, I don't get male privilege. Not to the level that you think. You know, people don't look at me and say, hey, that's a man. Ha ha ha. And I think a lot of us in the disenfranchised sectors look at the ways that the other disenfranchised people are and go, man, if I only had your tools. Oh, man. Thanks, Tyler, but I ain't showing that statement. But yeah, that's a real big thing, you know. There's an old statement that still holds true, which is the grass is always greener. And as a wizard, as a working occultist, part of my tradition from that creed, it is another discussion, that nerd soul, but I will say we can't say that because in the United States, black men still have more power than black women. Okay. We don't have enough power to make any positive impacts and forward progress against the opposition that we face. But we're not totally powerless. That's a different discussion, and I would be happy to do a barbershop one on your channel with this one. Let's work that out. Let's work that out. But yeah, so you know, I seriously come from the place. Wait, what's this? I'm just messing around. You know how I give it up. Oh yeah, no, and you know, I get that. I just don't want that on the thing, so that if y'all share this enough and these things get enough views, I don't want too many people in bad faith using what you said as an argument to take over the chat. All right, because I got way too much. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I am at a 76% probability of having to go get a job at Costco. Because right now there's not a whole lot of responsible high-paying positions that are available and actually hiring people right now. And they see my degree in physics and they go, oh, you know, oh my God, he's a black scientist, but his name is not Neil deGrasse Tyson. You know, so chances are, if I got to come up with this money, I got to come up with this money, and I'm not in a position to break the law to do it. You know, I mean, real talk. Because even if I take out a loan, I don't make enough money from here for my expenses to go up that much, y'all. And I'm trying. I'm really trying. I have a meeting with a marketing person in about a half hour today to try and pump up the numbers. But real, you know, real. Wait, Stargate. You've been waiting 88 years to hear Nerd Soul and I come together. We are together every Sunday at noon on his channel. And also like 2 or 3 other times per week. See, if you were subscribed to his channel on YouTube, you'd know that. See, that's all I'm saying. That's all. Because, you know, seriously, he's on top of it. He puts out the Instagram things. He shares the "we had this conversation, y'all need to check this out" things, and I share them on Deckers on the Book. So yeah, seriously, you know, waiting for us to come together, bro. We together every week, every week. All right, and I say barbershop discussions, but yeah, you looking at my edges, and you know, so I don't really care about that. But but yeah. So seriously, oh, that's right, from our America, and you know what? Yeah, hashtag Tilde for Storm. Still, they're doing the X-Men thing. I'm hoping to see her, you know. But there has been a lot of other actresses that have that same energy, and they've already used Denai Guerrera. So yeah, but you know, we're there. So real talk, all right. So real talk on all that. All of these things that I've talked to you today are things that are not just weighing on me every day, but currently they're weighing on me more than ever, and they may come with consequences because the person that I share blood with, doesn't care if I end up on the street. They want their money. They don't care if my business goes into the tube. They want their money. Although they have a guaranteed place to live, they have a car that's paid for, that they essentially, it was ugly, but all of their basic needs are taken care of. They want their money, and it'll get in the way of my survival. And that's really what it comes down to. So what I am going to say is this. I promise you guys that if I have to go, I will not be gone forever. All right? Unfortunately, the court system is not exactly unbiased. But I won't be gone forever. I will be broadcasting as much as I can. However, people keep saying, "Hey, what can I do to help? What can I do to help?" Blah, 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 blah. I'm doing my best to find a nerd office. Not a nerd, sorry, a loan officer that'll give me cash at better rates. I'm trying to advertise more and all that. But the number one thing people can do to help is to sign up at the Patreon. You know, I am corny. I ain't gonna lie. I'm corny. I grew up watching stuff like Little Rascals and 80s TV, where a person that everybody liked had come on hard times, and the community would get together and they would have a cookout, or they would have like a rent party, or they would get together and talk to churches and stuff like that, and they would come together to help the person that was in need. In the words of Ice-T, look, I'm from South Central LA, and unfortunately, it ain't like that. It's real messed up. All right. Yeah, that's the radio edit, and man, I miss body count. Anyway, so what people can do to help? Share the channel. Share the videos. Go to the Patreon. Subscribe more to Twitch. But seriously, subscribe to Patreon. They actually pay me a larger percentage. Because I need to, if I can come up with this 60 grand that I don't have to pay back by the end of the year, then nothing changes. But, seriously speaking, it's a thing. Actually, he is. I met him when I was a kid. So yeah, and being from somewhere pretty much means you grew up there and you internalize it, alright? So yeah, I mean, that's the realness. And I'm talking to you guys today about this because I woke up with a migraine. I was up most of the night trying to figure this stuff out. Hit me up in the Discord if you guys, and this is for literal financial literacy, if y'all want me to teach you the formula to calculate how much money you're actually taking out in a loan and how payments of that loan are determined. All right, knowing that before you go in can break your heart. But it's also knowledge that everybody needs, you know, because yes, there is an algorithm, and I know it by heart because I'm a wizard. And this is one of the numbers I had to break down with my lawyer. So he was good at robbing people, and he was an organizer of independent sex work contractors. You know. So but yeah, and if you guys want that, hit me up in the Discord, and I will happily walk you guys through all that, because there are ways to make money grow and all that other stuff. But real talk, like, yes, I know it by heart. All right, why is that? Because when you get into a place, Tyler, where you have to take out a loan, or you have to refinance, or you're looking to buy a house, it will behoove you to know exactly how much you're actually paying. You know, that will determine whether or not you can actually afford something. Because this is the part of my culture where, as I said, my great grandparents, both grandmother and grandfather, and my father's grandfather, they were born in the 1890s, 1892 and 1893, and my father's grandfather was born in, I believe, 1901 in Brazil. All right, and one of the big things, yeah, exactly, and one of the big things that we were taught was live within your means. Know what your means are. Don't live on credit. Don't take out loans. Neither a borrower nor a lender be. All that stuff. And then the world changed, you know, and there are reasons for that. I will happily give you guys video links, but if you guys want to know all that stuff, seriously, hit me up and I will let you know. I will walk you through how to do that math. All right. But it's been about an hour. I want to thank you guys for being here, and having this conversation with me. Like I said, I was, when I was writing today's episode, I looked over at my girl and I'm like, I can't do it. I'm trying to come up with something fun, and today's episode is going to be heavy. And she's like, you know, when I can't think of something fun, I just tell the truth. I'm like, well, I'm glad we're on the same page as that. All right. So with that, I got to say thank you guys. If you guys got any questions or want to talk to me more about this stuff, hit me up at backinthedeck@gmail.com. That's BACKINTHEDECK@gmail.com. You can also hit me up on Twitter and Instagram, or as I like to call those things, the social media that we all have and none of us like. You can also check out the TikTok, subscribe to that, because I meant for that to be the fun place for Back in the Deck, with puppets and singing and funny little jokes and stuff like that. But when you got crab claws around your Achilles tendons, it's real hard to run for the funny. And with that, I'm going to put up the Discord invitation in the chats on both channels right now. There we go. All right. And seriously, if you really want to help, the Patreon is the best place. I did spend a good amount of time setting up a 3D printer over at a game store in a relatively disenfranchised place, so that people can see what the 3D printers are, what they can do, how to do designs, and I'll be teaching classes on those if I don't have to go out and work at Costco. All right. And it's not just the money. I have to show the paper trail that isn't 1099, because that's what the court will believe, versus my actual tax records, where they can, I don't know if they will, but they can look at it and go, well, how do I know that this is consistent? You know, because when I helped my friend Tony against this big purple dude with butt cracks on his chin, you know, the bank still looked over and said, well, you don't make any money as an Avenger. Like, you know, how do you guys do that? And I looked at my friend Falcon and I'm like, can you believe this? You know, but anyway, on that one, take some of the stuff that I talked to you guys about today. Let me know what you think. And here's the deal. You can go over on Deckers on the Book or the Discord and have a good faith conversation. But when I say good faith, I mean engage with answers instead of just telling people that they're wrong. I'm saying this to the people who back up what I say and the people who are against it. Let's engage. It's not about being clever. It's not about being right and proving other people wrong. And it's not about owning anybody. It's about recognizing the way that things are, what needs to improve, and how we can act to go down that path for improvement. All right. I'm a middle-aged man. That's all we're thinking. I get the passion of youth. Okay. When I was young, I got it too. All right. But with all that said, if anybody tells you that you can't like what you like because of the circumstances of your birth, be it race, religion, creed, gender identity, sexual orientation, your disability, your neurodivergency, or your budget, because there ain't no such thing as a housing project that's more than 2 miles away from a trailer park, y'all. And we all have cinnamon and sugar sandwiches when we hit on those hard times. Y'all know, if you know, you know. If you don't, you need to learn. You can tell any of those people to take any of those cards and put them back in the deck. All right. I'm Solar Gray, the Cinematic Sorcerer, coming at you from the Wizard's Tower, and I will see you next time on the Dark Side of the Room.